Help me discuss this is Duke University professor Sultan Meghi. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Having me, Natasha.
So we just saw former Google CEO Eric Schmidt compare AI to nuclear weapons. Can you help us understand, if that's the case, what does an AI Hiroshima look like?
Well, one of the most interesting parts of this discussion is we just don't know. The advances in these technologies are broad and happening very quickly, and also happening, outside of the public view. Nuclear weapons very publicly have been used twice and only twice, and the development around them, and there's an entire global framework around managing them. Nowadays, we don't have that with advanced technologies, and certainly not with artificial intelligence. And so, we're at a moment where these technologies are advancing incredibly quickly, and sometimes they're being used for good and sometimes for not. And I think what Eric is talking about is exactly the first step in a conversation for us to make this a policy dialogue, because right now it really isn't. And he's exactly right that this isn't something that's getting talked about in government circles. I just left the government a few months ago, and this was not a conversation we were having.
And that's concerning. We do want to bring up a couple of images demonstrating just another example of how powerful AI can be. We want to show our viewers Dolly. It is a new AI that can turn pretty much any phrase into a picture. And we do want to pull that up if we have it. Yeah, okay, so take a look at this. Can you tell which image is real and which one is fake? Natalie Down and Simon Willison asked Dolly to make, quote, a cute black baby bunny on a red towel eating some cilantro. Well, the photo on the left side of your screen is fake. Fake bunny never existed. That is not real cilantro. So Sultan, AI is developing at such a blistering pace here. What do we need to do to control it?
Well, I think there's a very interesting question as whether or not it can be controlled. And we've seen it in deep fakes. I mean, Dolly is a great example of this. We've seen it with, people making fake videos of, the former and current presidents. And we have quite a bit of work to do to get our hands around this. But right now, the technologies are advancing so quickly, and there's so many capabilities there that we just don't have the ability to wrap our arms around it. And I think a lot of people, and Eric Schmidt's one, and I probably fall into that camp too, that in a lot of cases, you can't really close the horse barn once the horse is already in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And meanwhile, I mean, how can the U.S. put in safeguards if countries like China will continue to develop this technology without those safeguards?
This is a very important question, Natasha, and one that I really think we need to spend more time on, because we're currently not spending a lot of time on this, at the government level. Just a great example, in my job as a Duke professor, the vast majority of my students are not from the United States. We aren't teaching enough STEM students here. We're not growing enough of this capabilities inside to actually have these discussions. And so we're letting technology make these discoveries on our behalf because we don't have enough people to do that work. That's probably one of the first things we should get our arms around, is really adding, more STEM and more computer science into the educational program. Because right now we can't compete with the Chinese in terms of number of programmers, number of people working on this kind of stuff.
Well, and as a layperson, I mean, I look at this creepy dog from Boston Dynamics. I listen to the quotes that we had from Stephen Hawking and from Elon Musk as well, voicing such vociferous concern over this. I want to turn to you, an expert in this field. What keeps you up at night about AI? What is the worst case scenario that you see?
So to me, the worst case scenario is actually not a lot of the things we're seeing today. The worst case scenario is governments, large corporations, and non-state actors weaponizing technologies, not just artificial intelligence, but all sorts of technologies, whether it's a virus on your computer or a robot dog with a machine gun on it or an armed drone flying in restricted airspace. We are weaponizing these technologies very quickly, and we're not doing very much to solve that. And the vast majority of people aren't equipped to understand how this is impacting them. And so to me, I worry about the weaponization of technology for ill. And that's
can I ask, I'm sorry to interrupt, can AI and robots eventually become a part of our daily lives without risk? What is the good path forward here?
They already are. Artificial intelligence lives in the background of so much of what we do on a daily basis. From the technology that you and I are using to speak to each other over the internet right now, there's artificial intelligence in there. The very pipe of the internet that we all use is governed by artificial intelligence and advanced technologies. And so this is being used for immediate good all over the place. We're seeing it in healthcare and life sciences, whether it's designing new drugs or making sure drugs get to people that need them as quickly as possible. There's a lot of amazing work going on, and happily a lot of it is coming out of innovation here in the United States. But the fact is, there's a lot of weaponization happening too. And we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and just restrict use of AI, for example, just because we're worried about a very small subset of use cases. You know, there's some people who say we should get rid of AI because it's discriminatory or something like that in the financial system, for example. But it also does a heck of a lot of good in the financial system to keep bad guys from stealing your credit card information over the internet. And so we need to find the right balance there.
Understood. All right, Sultan Meghi with Duke University, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
We do want to turn now to the crime epidemic